Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I say good morning, good afternoon because my guests come from all over the world. And today I have a very nice gentleman called Mark Motsenbocker. Although he said it's supposed to be sounding differently, but I got it right. And he is in California at the moment. And as you know, I'm in London. And it's 5 a.m. What time is it in London? It's 5:11 a.m. in California, and here in London it's 1:11 p.m. So there is an 8 hours difference. And I'm so grateful for him to get up that early, but he says he's an early riser. So with much further ado, I'd like to introduce you to my guest today, Mark.
Thank you. It's a great honor to be with you today, and I say that because the accolades and marvelous reviews in your site speak about wisdom, authenticity, and consistency, and those are just amazing character traits that you present throughout your process. So I listened to a number of your podcasts and was just really blessed by all that you do. So I want to say thank you just for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you very much. So Mark, today we're going to hear about your journey, what started you off, and majority of the time it started from childhood, so that our viewers can see that they're not isolated in whatever they're going through and whatever they're experiencing. And hopefully your journey will inspire them and they can connect, and it will help them to know how they can overcome the challenges in their life. So Mark, tell us your story, please.
Absolutely. So my story starts when I was 8 years old, December 28, 1964. 3 days after Christmas, my father was a minister, and him and my mother left the house about 5:15 to go to a dinner, a ministerial dinner. And about 15 minutes after they left our house, they were both killed in a car accident. And so I have 4 siblings, so there's 5 kids left. My oldest brother was 18, I had a brother 16, I had a brother 13, I was 8, and I had a little sister 3. And so my mother's mother, came to raise us, and she was 64, widowed at the time. My grandma didn't know how to drive, which is, that sounds a little bizarre, but my grandfather had always said, I'll take you wherever you need to go. But unfortunately, he had an untimely death at 51, and so she was alone. She came to raise us, and wonderful person. I could write a whole book about my grandmother, but I've written a book called Searching for Father, and it's all about various men who walked through my life as I was growing up, and they were a gift. So I call them ordinary men who become extraordinary guides. And that's really what happened for me, and that's really what a blessing that I received. They were givers. There's no doubt in my mind about that. Just to give some context, I have some quotes in the book, but Tony Dungy, who is a famous football coach here in America, he said fatherlessness is a silent epidemic. It doesn't just leave children without a dad, it leaves them without part of themselves.
Yeah.
And so, there is this need. Even I have friends who have a father, but they don't really have a relationship with them, right? And Pope John the 23rd said, it's easier for a father to have children than for children to have a real father. And so, the book tries to extrapolate what the real need of people is. And this applies to women as well as men, because I'm a guy, so I'm not writing from basically a woman's perspective, but the opportunity is there.
Yes.
And so one of the reasons I felt compelled to write this was when you think about our world, you notice that it's a living and giving process that provides for our needs to exist and grow. And I think that's a crucial element. I say all that because I believe the world is here and designed to give us everything, and that's a benefit to us, right? Yes. If we take the time to consider the world, or even the universe for that matter, it provides substance to our needs. So you look at the vegetation of the world, it doesn't produce fruits and vegetables that they consume, right? And the snow and the rain and the rivers don't consume the water that they provide. Mm-hmm. And the flowers don't take in all the glorious smell that they produce. The moon and the sun don't really benefit from the light that they give, right?
Yeah.
Everything in the universe and the world is for us. And I think that's an empirical lesson for us to learn and to provide as we walk through life. Giving is the chief enterprise of nature and the universe from God. And we should emulate that as part of our daily thoughts, habits, and actions.
Yeah. Can I stop you there?
Yeah.
You have said something so empowering, so remarkable, and I say remarkable and really thought invoking, that I've never looked at it that way. And it's a wonderful way, because as you say, everything it mirrors, everything mirrors one another. And I say that because, and you just say, we should emulate that from nature, and we should look at nature and see how nature works and take advice from nature. And as you said, the sun gives out its light, but it doesn't benefit from its light. The flowers give out its perfume. It doesn't benefit that. And the moon and the light and so much. And it's true in life. We're here really to learn and to give, to share. As nature gives and shares, so we are supposed to give and share. And if we can do that and understand that, it's going round. Thank you so much for pointing that out. I'll let you continue, but I just have to stop you and say, and really say, that is such a good energy to give. Please continue.
Yeah. So, when you think about that, it's pretty profound, because just imagine a world, just imagine, just close your eyes and imagine for a second, a world where everybody gives, nobody takes, right? Everybody just gives, right? And you can understand, I think, if you just kind of close your eyes and think about how wonderful it would be if I walked out into the world and people said, "Hi, how you doing today?" And people said, "Oh, you need help with that." And no, I mean, it's the wisdom is Proverbs 11:25 says, "A generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed."
Yeah.
And I believe that's really what God wants us to understand, right? That it goes on, Jesus says, "For God so loved that he gave." So love is it's the profound paramount principle of what life is about. It's about loving. And then giving is the action that we do to make love real, right?
Yeah. It's always giving. The primordial thing is love. And when we love, we automatically want to give. If we think about somebody we're in love with, it's always, can we give them? What can we show them? Being with them. What can we do for them? And it is coming from love.
Yeah. So here's the unique thing about all this. Now, if you grasp this, which I think you have very, very well, unlike the universe and the earth, they don't get to choose, right? There's no choice. They all do what they do because that's what God designed them to do, to give, right? So the sun can't come up tomorrow and say, I'm really burned out on being hot, I'm going to chill, right? That doesn't happen. An apple tree produces apples. It can't say, "Oh, wait, I'm changing. Give me a pear out there this year. I want to do a couple of pears," right? But we are created. We're created to have choice, right? And so that's the profound thing, because we don't just live on the earth. We live in it, with it, and through it.
Yes.
And I think the key concept for everybody to consider here is there's an interdependence that's not optional. It's not optional. We don't get to choose about that. We're going to have to interact with the world to survive. Yeah. So our task is not to conquer nature, but it's to learn to live and work in harmony with its generosity.
Yes. So true. Harmony. Everything is harmony.
Yeah. So the earth doesn't give to us because we deserve it. Because there's a lot of people think, "Oh, I should get this, I should get that, I should get this." It gives to us because giving is what life does. Yes. And to me, that's so this was an important piece for me, because I came to the conclusion, death leaves a heartache no one can heal, but giving leaves a memory no one can steal. So that's off I found that supposedly it's an old Irish tombstone quotation, but I think I think there's real profound importance in that. So living in the likeness of God is giving. And if we can embrace that and use that, we're going to find that I had the experience of a lifetime because of the people who walked into my life. So I have a quote in my book that says, Winston Churchill once said, to each there comes in their lifetime a special moment when they are figuratively tapped on the shoulder and offered the chance to do an incredibly special thing, unique to them and fitted to their talents. What a tragedy if that moment finds them unprepared or unqualified for what could have been their finest hour. And I want to tell you, I got to meet all these men. There's 26 of them. And I met them all in their finest hour, just for me. They did things for me that no one else was able or capable to do. And I think that's a part of the whole giving thing, right?
Yes.
I mean, they're teachers, they're neighbors, they're bosses, they're people I encountered through other events that I went to or things that I did.
Yes.
And they gave me something that's priceless. You can't put a value on how people can nurture you and encourage you and build you up and support you and affirm you. And I didn't have that. My grandmother did a lot of those things, but it's not a man. And I hate to say it, it's not a sexist thing. There's an internal yearning in our hearts to have both parents. I wish I had both my parents, but without that, it's like there's a piece missing, right? There's just something that's not whole or complete. So,
and can I just come in there and say, and to support you in that, it's not a sexist thing, because when the Creator created us, he created male and female, and he did it for a purpose. And we need that balance because each one has its own strengths. The woman has her strengths, the man has his strengths, and that is balance. And in balance, we find harmony. And as you so rightly say, everything is about balance and harmony. Life, nature, it's all about giving balance and harmony. The woman gives what she needs to give and nurture, and the man needs to give what he can give and nurture, and it brings that balance and harmony. And of course, as you say, searching for father, you needed the male figure within your life. You had your grandmother, the female, and she did the best she could, but you needed that male balance that was missing. So I understand you.
So I think the thought-provoking thing then that really happened that helped my grandmother understand that and support me in a number of different ways was the following year. So I'm 9 years old now, and the school year is going to start pretty soon. And so my grandma said, we need to go through your dresser drawers and we take out some of the clothes that you've outgrown now, and we've got some new clothes we're going to put in there. And so she started at the top drawer and socks and underwear, and then the next drawer was shirts, and the next drawer was some pants and shorts, and the bottom drawer had I think a sweater and a couple other long sleeve shirts in it or something. And I was nervous, to be honest, because in the bottom drawer, my grandmother found something, and it was a pretty emotional moment, I think, for both of us. So my grandmother wrote my name on my lunch bag every day. I took a bag lunch to school every day, and she wrote my name and my sister's name and my brother's names. And I had taken every bag every day after lunch, and I had folded it up very, very carefully. And I brought them home, and there was probably over 200 bags in the bottom of that drawer with my grandma. And she looked at me and she says, why would you keep lunch bags? Why are you doing this? And I looked at her and I said, because if I lose you, I don't know if I have anything to remember you by, right? And that totally just crushed her. I think for the first time, I know she knew. We never got any counseling. Nobody came and helped us. Nobody came and tried to guide us. But I think that was an epiphany for her in what I was struggling with personally, of just the loss and trying to remember my parents and clinging to something. I was looking for something. So she was very supportive of me, and so I have one of the people that I think had a huge impact on me was a junior high coach. And I was a skinny, scrawny. I was really pathetic. No, I mean, if I turned sideways and stuck out my tongue, you thought I was a zipper, right? I mean, it was just there. There was nothing to me, nothing at all, no muscle anywhere. And so I would go to school, we'd go to gym, I'd get dressed for gym, and they would, I'd never get picked. They, as they pick teams that, they'd pick somebody and then, and I was always the last person. And then I just got put on a team, whoever had the last pick, right? And I never got to play. They never put me on, they never put me out there. I just sat and watched. And so coach comes to me one day and he says, "Hey, I've got something I want you to do today, and we'll get the game set up and then I'm going to take you out in the field." So he comes to get me, and he's got some golf clubs in his hand and some golf balls in a bag, and he takes me out in the field. He says, "I'm going to teach you to golf. This is something you can do." And I said, "Well, I don't really know much about it." He said, "That's right." And he said, "But this is something you can do. You can do this. You can have this. You can possess this, and you can do good at this. I believe you can do that, right?" So I said, "Okay." So he taught me a little bit how to swing, and he says, "Here, you hit the balls, and then when the class finishes, bring the balls and the clubs back to me. Then tomorrow I'll come out and we'll talk some more, and we'll do some more." And slowly over the course of that school year, he got me to be pretty good at being able to hit the ball and actually make it go kind of where I wanted it to go. And then the school year was ending, and he came to me and said, "I need to see you." And I went to see him, and he gave me a set of golf clubs and some balls. And I was shocked. I was like overwhelmed, right? I was like, whoa. And he goes, "Now here's the deal. I'm giving you these. You go home and you practice every day now." And he says, so he came to my house on a Saturday and picked me up, talked to my grandma for a while, took me to a little golf course not too far from where I lived, and said, "You can come over here every day on your bike and you can play here. These guys," and he introduced me to the owner and some of the guys that worked there. And I went there every day. I had 2 paper routes to try and help support, my desires for life, whatever those were. But I went there every day. And when I came back in the fall, coach said, "How'd you do?" I said, "I think I did pretty good. I feel pretty comfortable." He says, "Okay." He says, "Well, second day of school, I'll get the teams picked. And the third day of school, we'll go out in the field and you can show me what you do." I said, "Fine." So third day comes, he walks out into the field. I'm out there with the clubs and some golf balls. And he brings a bunch of jump ropes, and he lays 4 jump ropes down and builds a box out on the field, about 30 yards, and then about 60 yards, and then about 90 yards. And then he sprinkled 8 balls, and he says, "Let's see how many of the 8 can you get in the first box?" And so I think I got 6 in the first box, and the other 2 kind of bounced in the box, but then bounced out. And then I think I got 5 in the next box. And then I think I got 4 in the last box. And he turned around to me and he says, "I am so proud of you." And I was overwhelmed because nobody had said they were proud of me. Nobody was proud of me, right?
And how old were you then? About
I
10?
was about 12 years old then.
Must have meant so much.
Yeah, and Donald Holland was just an amazing man. And by the time I left junior high, he introduced me to the high school golf coach. But by the time I left junior high, I could pretty much par. So I'm 14 years old now. I could pretty much par any public course around my house because I played every day. I played every day all through junior high. And on the weekends, I'd go down. The guys at the golf course were nice. They let me put balls into the baskets that they did for the driving range, and they let me clean up a little bit. And then they'd say, "Okay, go ahead and play a game of golf," so I didn't have to pay, right? And then there were other gentlemen there that were equally generous, and I'd play with some of these older guys, and they'd coach me a little bit about this approach, you should do this and think about this, and but marvelous man. And I can tell you story after story after story because there's 26 of them. And one of them I still meet with today. He's a lawyer friend that I've made, and he's still working, and he's in his 80s. Just a wonderful man. He's the consummate gentleman and impeccable. But I think, I say in the book, I think many of these relationships, it was the maturing and wisdom of these father figures that was so important. And yet I didn't see some of the affirmative actions that they provided until after the experience and lesson came about, right? It wasn't until after I thought, wow, how precious was it for me to be able to spend that kind of time with him or them. And so there's nothing magical about that, but the outcome of a great investment in nurturing, and that interacted to bring about an improved character. And that's the whole power of this. And I think everybody in life has the opportunity for those experiences. It's whether you seize them or not, right? Because I could have said, I'm not doing golf. I don't really think golf is my thing, and walk away. And I missed the whole opportunity for him to take me golfing and to encourage me and foster the fact that this skinny little kid could go and play something and really win, right? Yes. And so it goes on and on. Other professors that had a huge impact on me and helped me in my career, bosses that I had. And so all of that is to say that you walk now through life and you have a choice.
Yes.
And I think sometimes it's our inadvertent, we're not really pronouncing, hey, I need something, but the way we talk, maybe the way we reflect, and the way we interact with people, they can look at us and say, you need, when I do mentoring with people and I hear them say things, I say, well, that's kind of interesting. Tell me more about that. Right. Yeah. And they'll explain some more. And then sometimes I don't have the wisdom to deal with that, but I can go and quote somebody or provide them with something or direct them to some scriptures or some things to think through and ponder how they can encourage them to improve in that. Right. Because life is for me, life is not, it's all about habits. Right. So, I learned early in my 20s, life is neither good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Right.
Yes.
Every day is as good as you want it to be or as bad as you want it to be. Right. And it all starts here. Right. But I did learn that if you think about what you want to do and what you want to achieve in life, there is opportunities for people to provide wisdom. And wisdom is not just the knowledge, it's the experience. Yes. I've been down that path before, and I know all the places you can stub your toe or trip. And so let me help you get down that path without having any injuries or having any delays. And I think that's the beauty of what life brings to us, right? That it actually, we do have the opportunity to walk through this life and be a better person every day. And so I don't have to compete with anybody else in the world, which I think is a real peaceful relief, because people want to compete. They want to be better than you. They want to be better than me. They want to be better. All I have to compete with is Mark. I just make Mark a better person tomorrow, right?
Can I just say something here? And you said it so well, is that when we want something and we visualize and we believe that that's what we want, and we give that out to the universe, something will come to us. Mm-hmm. But we've got to be aware of it. And sometimes it comes in ways that we don't realize. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we think it should come this way when it actually comes that way. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting how you, as you said, you stumped your toe, you've gone along that path. And it does sound as though sometimes when you've wanted things, you've hoped for something, you've not seen the signs. Mm-hmm. And gone the left way instead of a right way. And what has made you what has made you feel that sometimes when those signs have come, that you don't recognize them or that you didn't accept it?
Yeah, I think I think as I've grown older, I've gotten more patient and more thoughtful about where I'm headed and what I'm doing. Right. I exercise very regularly. It's a part of my habits. Right. And I do believe that we are what we repeatedly do. Right. So excellence or greatness is not an act. It's a habit. Mm-hmm. So I exercise regularly. When we go on vacation, I still try and exercise every day. Right. Mm-hmm. At my age, and I'm not an old man, but at my age, I don't run much anymore. I walk. Mm-hmm. But I compete against myself every day. I time how long I'm walking, and my phone gives me how many miles I've walked. And I do a calculation at the end of every walk. You know, sometimes it's 12 and a half minutes. Sometimes it's 12:47. Sometimes it's 11:59. But I'm trying to improve my health by walking and doing cardiovascular and all that. And so I don't need to compete against anybody else. If I run a race, it doesn't really make any difference if I win the race, as long as I did better today than I did yesterday. And so I think that's important for people to understand. But I think as you walk through life, you have opportunities to ask questions of others and glean some of the wisdom that they've had. You know, that Proverbs is, 31 chapters, but it's all wisdom. It's, Solomon was supposedly the most brilliant person in all of history, the wisest man that you could ever encounter. And so he does a marvelous thing. He gives to us every thought that he ever pondered, everything that he ever extrapolated in his discussions and exposure to other great people. And he says, here, take this. It's for the keeping, right?
Yes.
It's in Proverbs 11:25. It says, a generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed, right? So God's empowered us to be a blessing. And as we pour out on others, he pours more into us. Yeah. And that's kind of the cycle of divine abundance in my mind, right? It's just, we're going to get if we give, right? A prime example is I'm walking down the street the other day, and here's a girl with a flat tire on her car. So I think to myself, oh, I should probably stop and help her, right? So I stop and I watch her, and she's actually going the wrong direction. She's tightening the tire more than she's not loosening it at all. And so I said, oh, how you doing? She goes, oh, I'm going to be okay. I said, well, I'll just give you one pointer. If it's righty tighty, lefty loosey, right? So if you quit pushing the right way and push to the left way, you can get that off a lot quicker. She looked at me and goes, are you serious? I go, no, I'm really serious. I said, let me show you. So and she must have been standing on that poor little thing, because it took me forever to get the one loose. But once I got it loose, then I got the next one loose. And she said, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you stopped. I said, well, I'm glad I stopped too. But I said, do you want me to help you change it? She goes, no, I've already texted my boyfriend. He's coming. But I'm so happy you came by when you did, because now I look much smarter. I know how to get the tire off. And so she did want me to stay. She said, no, my boyfriend's coming, so you don't need to stay. But that's the kind of, interchange that you can have in life when you're just willing to stop and give. I remember standing I was working in New York City. This is years ago, but I remember standing on a corner, and a lady came walking across the street, and she came up on the corner, and I said, oh, hi, how are you doing today? And I smiled at her. And she turned to me and looked at me for the longest time. She goes, I can't remember the last time I was out walking when somebody smiled and said hi. And I was like, really? And she goes, yeah, you know how people are in New York. They're all into their own world and doing their own thing, getting where they got to go. And so I helped her walk across the street again, because we walked the same way, right? And we had a nice little chat at the other side of the corner. But those are the kind of unexpected things you can do. And so it's, I think you have to be intentional every morning. You have to have a mindset of, what am I going to do to give to people today? Where does that come, right? So that you see the opportunity, and then you seize that, right?
You are absolutely correct. And why I say that is, I used to get up very early in the morning, around 5 o'clock. I don't do it now, and I think I need to go back and do it, and I might start doing it again. And it is about exercising. And I get up, and it's around August, because in London we're in summertime, so the time is 1 hour ahead. And one year I took on board what you said, and I still try to do that. And I get up every morning around 5 o'clock, and I'll go for a walk, and I'd go for a walk for about an hour. Mm-hmm. On the way coming back, when you start to walk at a certain time and you do it at a regular time, you start to see
same people.
Mm-hmm. So, I took on board that, I'm seeing the same people, and we're walking, and I decided to say, morning, good morning, good morning. And I took on board what you were saying. And you do the first morning, it was like, oh, good morning. It was like shock.
Yeah.
And as I did it, people started to respond. And there was one particular man, and he was Korean or Chinese, but that Asian, and they're quite shy people.
Mhm.
And it was near enough to where I had to turn off to go into my road. And I'll say good morning to him, and and I said the first time, it's like, and after about the fourth or fifth morning, he started to say, good morning, good morning. And he would actually smile.
Mhm.
And you do find that when you do this to people, it is a surprise because we don't connect. Everybody's in their own world. But when we intentionally, I decided intentionally to do this every morning. And when I saw those people, because it was very quiet,
Right.
they would respond. And they started to smile because it was like, oh, you again. Oh, it's you. And it was particularly this little man that I know that is very shy, and he started to respond with a smile. And so I didn't have to wait till I came up close. He saw me, and there was a reaction as I was approaching. And we do have to do this intentionally, and to get that response. And it's such a lovely feeling when you do get that response. And I do it now sometimes on the bus or wherever. When I say thank you to the driver, and getting off, I say thank you to the bus driver. It's an intention to smile and to recognize that they're there and they're important.
Yeah, because you can be put off, right? I hate to label society in any given way. I'm not here to judge anybody, but I do think we live kind of in a me-ism society. I think people today are forever free, who get caught up in all the self-desire that they have.
Yes.
And we need to break away from that, I believe, and renounce self-desire, right? Because it's the ego cage of I, me, and mine, right? And I do think that that's an opportunity, and it's difficult sometimes because, like you, I'll walk, and a lot of people have earbuds in, and I'll say hi as I walk by them, and
they can't hear you.
Well, they're just totally, they're in their own world, they're in their own lane. But I've not given up on that. I still say hi to everybody as I pass them because I think it's important to give, right? And so when you do that, and I think the other thing that I've really kind of become, I think you make your life meaningful by applying the meaning of giving, right? And so you can be meaningful in everything you do if you're willing to give. And so I really think you got to kind of think through that process, because I think giving is a core component of a life well lived. And when you're a giver, people do. So in my book, I talk about early in my 20s, I started doing training. I started teaching at college level, but I started doing training. And I kind of came up with this quote of doing for others what no one else is willing to do.
Yeah.
And I found when I can figure out what I can do for you that no one else is willing to do, I can have a huge impact in your life, right?
Yeah.
Because you can't find me anywhere else.
Yeah.
And what does that mean? Well, it means doing something that nobody else is willing to do. So I give you a prime example. It's kind of a funny story, but I lived in a beautiful neighborhood at one point in time, and all the homes in the neighborhood were 75 yards from the street.
Okay.
That's three-fourths of a football field. So you had all these nice 2-story homes, all set back, and big sprawling lawns and hills and lush gardens around the home, and it's beautiful. It really was beautiful, right? And so I lived on a cul-de-sac, and there was like 6 homes in the cul-de-sac. And I come home one night, and I had known that the people across the street, it was just a husband and wife. Their kids were older. He was out traveling because I had talked to him the weekend before. So the trash cans were down to the curb. And so I thought, I should go take the trash cans up for her because, it was cold. It was winter. So I got out of the car and I rolled her trash cans up and then came back. And then as I got in my car to go on down to get in my driveway, I noticed somebody else's cans were out, and I thought, oh, if I'm going to do one, I should do everybody.
Yeah.
Put their trash cans in too, right? So, and then I came home and then I rolled my trash cans up, right? And so I thought, that's kind of a nice thing to do, right? So kind of the premise of love your neighbor as yourself, right? It would be nice if somebody took my trash cans up when I wasn't home. And so anyway, so I started doing that every week, just once a week, and sometimes I did 4 homes, sometimes I did 1 home. But so we have a get together with everybody for Christmas, and the cul-de-sac families, and everybody's going, hey, who's taking in the trash barrels? Who's taking in the trash barrels? And I was like, nobody's taking in my trash barrels. They go, oh, come on. I said, no, I come home, my trash barrels are out, I take them up, right? So then somebody must have started watching, right? Because I go away, I'm out of town with work, and I call home to talk to my wife that night, and she says, hey, somebody brought her trash barrels up tonight. I'm like, really? She goes, yeah. I said, well, who would do that? She goes, I don't know, but somebody brought them up, right? I came home and they were up, right? And then somebody must have been watching, because about 3 weeks later, I get a thank you card in the mail with a gift card, no less, right? Saying, thanks for being the trash guy, right? And I'm like, well, that, I didn't do this for that reason. I did. But that's how it works, right? People see something like that and they think, that is nice. That was really nice what you could do. And I think I'm most proud of the fact that my kids are like that.
Yeah.
So the neighbor across the street, we had a windstorm and it knocked a tree down. He came home early from work to get the tree out of the driveway and get it put, cleaned up. My son came home from school that afternoon, saw him working on that, dropped his bag, walked up and said, how can I help? And so I come home that evening, and he must have been waiting to watch for me. And when I pulled into my driveway, he comes running across the street and he goes, I got to tell you, he goes, you got the greatest son in the world. I said, what? He goes, yeah, he came over after school and he spent 2.5, 3 hours here working with me, getting my yard cleaned up from this tree. And he goes, and I tried to pay the kid and he wouldn't take anything. He said, oh, no, that, I wanted to help you, right? And that's how it works, right? The life just presents an opportunity, and you can either be a giver and do that, or you can be a receiver and take that when it comes your way, right? But you can't miss those opportunities.
You can. No, what you're saying is absolutely beautiful, because it is, and coming back to nature, it is about giving. And if we all just did, not because we have to, because we just want to, it's a nice thing to do.
Yeah.
It's a nice thing to do. I do that with my neighbor. I had a neighbor and she was on her own, elderly. And I even used to take her to her appointments, and she'd be so nervous. And sometimes I'd say to her, just phone me, I've got nobody to disturb me. And I'd even go and sleep with her at night because she'd get palpitation. And I knew her daughter lived abroad, and it's about looking at one another, especially those around you. You can't do things really for people hundreds of miles away, but just about your community. What can you do for your community? And I say you can't do things for people 100 miles away, but like you said, even if you go out and you see some, you say hello, and they're so into their own world. And we are, unfortunately, at a time when it's about me, what I need to do for me, what I can achieve, and not thinking about anybody else. And that's not life, because when something happens, we need one another's support.
Absolutely.
So it makes life so loving, it makes life so caring, and it gives you that sense of security as well when you have that consideration around you, and it does make you want to give even more. So you're absolutely correct. It is about giving our life, and this is what we're supposed to be practicing. How can we give? Whatever we do, whatever we're studying, how can we share it to help our fellow man?
Yes. Yeah. And I think it's a beautiful thing, right? Again, if you could just imagine everybody's giving to everybody, right? If our world was really everybody was focused on when they walked out of their house every day, how can I help somebody today? How can I give to them? And sometimes I found in my career a lot of times it's just listening. You don't have, but
Thank you.
I say it's the three things: time, energy, and emotion. So it either takes your time to listen, or it takes some energy for you to help do something. And sometimes it takes your emotions, right? People share their burdens and you get emotionally drawn into that, right? But I found it worked sometimes. I just had to listen to people. I didn't, because nobody listened to them at home, right?
Yeah. But again, you're giving, because when you give your time to listen, you are giving your time.
Yep.
When you're taking a trash can out, you're giving your energy, but it's your thought of wanting to help. And I've been in that situation that when you sit on the bus or somewhere and you just start talking and they tell you their life and they needed to. And you listen and you encourage. And again, it's about giving, whether you say time, whether your physical energy or your emotion, it is about giving, sharing that experience. Somebody wants to share their experience of their life and what they're going through.
So the book really goes through a lot of different. It's a linear path from the very first man that helps me was my dad's best friend, and we ended up living about 3 blocks away from them. So his name was John Hager, but I called him Uncle John.
Yeah,
he wanted me to call him Uncle John. So he was Uncle John, and his wife was Ann LMA, and they were wonderful people. But he was a finished carpenter, and so I have a love of working with wood because I got to spend time with him when I was a little boy, just working with wood. The smell of fresh cut wood brings back so many memories of my childhood, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a linear progression from there all the way up until the very last one, Bernie Simons, who's a man that I meet with about every 4 to 6 weeks for lunch, and he's had a huge impact on me as well. So it's
so John, you've written this wonderful book and given your experience, and it is about people giving and you having the wisdom to take it on sometimes, and when you're not, the experience, and then recognizing the gift that you were given with all these different people. And of course you've done this in your own life. So at the present moment, how can people connect with you? What are you doing that people can probably connect and talk more, or somebody you can coach that needs that help? How can people connect with you?
So the book's available if they want to do that. It's called Searching for Father, A Son's Pursuit for a Father's Presence. And that's it's you can go online. It's at Amazon. It's with Books A Million. It's with Barnes and Nobles. And then I say in the book, if you connect with me, I'll get back to you. So you can connect with me on Facebook. I'm on Facebook. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can see my stuff on LinkedIn. I do have a website. It's just NEW Dimensions INTLCO.com. And you could schedule an appointment with me. I don't say I'm going to charge anybody for anything, but you can schedule an appointment with me. If you'd like for me to come and speak because I think this is really applicable in business. If everybody that came to work was a giver at work, and a giver with your consumers or with whoever's making the purchases, you'd have a much, much more successful endeavor.
Yeah.
And I'll give everybody a copy of the book if I come and share the story with them, and then help them understand just how profound and powerful this is in your life.
John, thank you so much for being on my program. But before we say goodbye, can you leave our viewers with some kind of golden nugget that you can advise them or give to them that will help them along their journey in their life?
Yeah, I think I got one quote here. I think being a giver is similar to a dedicated gardener nurturing souls. For in this process, you tend or focus your attention on others. And in doing so, you bring them needed light, a ray of hope to show them a way forward. And so I do believe that's true. I believe your interactions, I'll finish with one quick story if I can.
Please,
I'm
yes.
I'm a young man. I'm in my early 20s. I own a home with my brother. I'm leaving my house one day to go, and I was going to go buy a new CD, uh, and um, and I pulled out on the boulevard, and this lady is parked over at the curb with a flat tire, standing next to her car. And I thought of my grandmother at first. I thought, oh my goodness, look at, she's as old as my grandma. And so I pulled over and I got out of my car and I said, can I help you? And she goes, would you do that? I said, I think I can do that. I think I can change your tire. So I got into her trunk and got the stuff out, and I was jacked the car up and I was taking the tire off, and she says, so where do you live? And I said, oh, I just live around the corner here. And she goes, well, where did you grow up? And I said, I grew up over here. And she goes, oh, I know that area real well. What street did you live on? And I told her what street I lived on. And she goes, and where did you live on that street? I said, I lived down by the riverbed down there at the end. We were just about 3 houses from the riverbed. And she goes, oh my word. She said, you're not one of the Motsenbocker boys, are you? And I'm telling you, I thought my heart was going to stop, right? I'm thinking, this is strange, right? And I turned around and I looked at her and I said, I am. I'm the youngest boy. She goes, I've been praying for you and your brothers and sister since the day your parents died. And I was shocked. I mean, I was just told, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, look, this lady, and now I get to change a tire for her. How nice is that, right? And she wanted to pay me. She wanted to give me $5 when I was done. I said, no, I can't take your money. She says, no, I insist. You got dirty, and look, you helped me. And I said, no. I said, you keep praying for me. That's worth way more than $5, right?
Way more. More.
So that is the process, right? She gave me a renewed hope about how beautiful the world is and how good people are. And there are good people, right? They do good things for you. So don't ever forget, one kindness begets another, right? Because you do. And how priceless was that? She'd been praying for me for, all these years, and a wonderful lady. And I called my grandma when I got home. I didn't even go buy the CD. I went home and I called my grandma and I told her name, and she was like, oh, she used to bring clothes to you kids. She would go around and collect clothes to bring clothes to you kids, because we were so, it was a difficult time, right? But beautiful though, beautiful.
And she used to give clothes, and she thought about you, and she continued to pray for you. That is worth more than gold.
Yes.
So Mark, thank you so much for this. I've gleaned a lot of gold nuggets for this, and it's reminded me of so many things that I do that sometimes we just take for granted. And I hope people who are listening have got gold nuggets for that. And remember that when you're out, just saying hello to somebody, special people you see on a regular basis, maybe in your road you may not talk to, or even getting on a bus and saying to everybody, hi everyone, or good morning. It's unusual, but imagine if people just did that, how wonderful this world is. So for now, thank you all for joining my program. And I say thank you to Mark Motsenbocker for being here. Say hello to California. It's nice and warm. In London, it's not so bad. It's still warm, but a bit breezy. And to everybody else, thank you for joining us, and bye for now.
Thank you.